Before we get to the interview, I'd like to tell you about a special offer to subscribe to the Business Observer, which covers essential business news in Florida every day online and every Friday with a print edition. Unlock every Business Observer article on our website and app for only $1 a week. Sign up today and stay up to date with all the business news you need to be better at business. Go to businessobserverfl.com/subscribe. Hello and welcome to the From the Corner Office podcast. I'm Mark Gordon, managing editor of the Business Observer. Today's guest is Joanna Olsen, owner of Coyote Ugly. Joanna, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
Awesome. Excited to talk to you. And we're going to start with, you're going to please tell us a little about Coyote Ugly. And it's funny to me, the brand is so entrenched in my mind, maybe because of my age, which we just talked about off camera, that I, was of age to see the movie and know the brand. But I mentioned it to my producer. I'm going to throw under the bus because he can't defend himself on this show, but he's a young millennial Gen Z, and he said, "What's Coyote Ugly?" And I said, "You don't know? You never heard of the movie?" And he hasn't. So, okay, you have a blank slate with that introduction, Joanna, but tell us, what is Coyote Ugly?
Okay, well, Coyote Ugly is a bar that Lil, the founder, established, who is my partner. And it is where girls do choreographed dances on the bar. It's basically a hole in the wall. The movie Coyote Ugly is based on it. And you just have a lot of fun. We do penalty shots. We have a lot of bachelorette parties, birthday parties, all ages, all groups. And that's what I love the most of it. It's the biggest eclectic group of people in one bar, just out to have a really fun, good time.
Awesome. And how did you get into this? I know you've had a long career in hospitality, but how did you get into this business and open and start this Coyote Ugly bar?
So I was in New York visiting my family. I'm originally from New York, raised in Atlanta, was visiting my family for Thanksgiving and had owned a nightclub called Paradox in Atlanta. So I had some validity behind my name, and this is at 24, so it was young. But I went to Coyote Ugly and walked in and literally fell in love with the concept. To make it a fun story, they were like, "Hey, supermodel, get on this bar and do a shot of tequila or get the F out." So I look at my cousin, who's kind of my mean bully, older sister type cousin, who looks at me like, "You better get up there." And I did. And about several shots later, I was talking to the owners and people, and we did a napkin deal that night and I said, "I will find a location. I want to do this in Atlanta." And again, the movie had not come out.
Yeah.
So I had never seen one. No one had ever seen one, but I fell absolutely in love with what I experienced in the bar that night.
Amazing. So you did a napkin deal. So you talked to them, you're like, "Hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what it's going to look like." And you took off from there.
I don't know if it was that thorough after that, but it was picking cities. So at that time, I picked Atlanta, Panama City, Tampa, and Charlotte at the time. Yep. And that was in year 2000.
Do you have multiple locations still today?
I do. I am so fortunate. I just wrote yesterday, I am celebrating all 4 of my anniversary parties. Tampa is going to be 21 this year. Panama City is going to be 20. Destin is 11 and Daytona is 7. So I'm very fortunate. I happen to open them somehow all in April. So
wow.
April, spring. So we do a lot of celebrating in this month.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, you talk about it's so fun and you have these milestone events, bachelorette parties and all these things. And obviously it's a good time, the music and dancing, but tell us about the other side. I mean, bar business is hard, right? There's a lot of things that go into it. There's licensing, there's regulations, there's obviously payroll. If you were to just tell us about that side, what are some challenges that stand out in your mind as you've been able to sustain over these 21 years?
That's a great question. And there are so many challenges. And every day living in Florida, it can be a hurricane, it can be a shooting, it can be COVID. I mean, now COVID, I had just, I keep a very good journal and I just was writing all the things so I would remember everything that comes up. And I was like, certainly, I don't know what else that heavy other than being wiped out with Hurricane Michael in Panama City.
Yeah.
You have to go into this, leader mode, go straight into the fire. Literally drove there that day from Tampa. it was supposed to be a category 1, went to a category 5 within 24 hours. It's not just you're worried about your business. Half my employees lost their homes. So at that time I had to find housing for them, get Publix gift cards to make sure they had food to feed their kids. There's huge challenges.
Yeah.
And at the same time, of course, you're worried, well, where's my income going to come to support to reopen?
Right.
So that's an example of one large challenge.
Yeah.
But every single day I say, I'm just a glorified landlord that is basically putting out fires. It's a mini fire from fixing the air conditioning unit to the toilets, to this, to that. I just wake up every day. I'm grateful to have such an amazing team that now runs it at night. But do look at the list of things from each location and what needs to be done at that point and what happened.
Yeah. If we can go back to the Hurricane Michael, because that's just so fascinating to me. As you mentioned, as a leader, like you go into that put out fire mode, but what's going through your mind as you're driving there thinking, okay, I probably lost my place. I have, I don't know, say 20, 25 employees. They have young kids. They have all this stuff as a human being, but also as a leader. What's going through your head then?
Wow, it's tough.
Yeah.
I know, I'm almost puts tears in my eyes right now because you know I've never had something that severe. And then when you got there, you're like, man, this is a war zone.
Yeah.
When I did pull up, I saw 2-year-olds running through the street. You know, this isn't a very high income area either.
Right.
And you had to detour and go through all this. And, you know, I just got in my car and got there and did bring water, thank God, but I didn't think it out. And it took me 10 hours to get there.
Yeah.
And then to get to the building first and foremost, and told everybody in that area to gather there. And then I was fortunate enough to have a home in Destin that they did come there. But it is boots on the ground. It is very difficult to see people in that situation. And it's still, to this day, it is still rebuilding. You know, here we are, 5 years later, still rebuilding. Thank God our business itself can withstand a category 5 and the building itself was okay. But we were shut down for 2 months in a very, big period. So we lost, easily $1 million worth of sales as well. Plus my girls make tips. My barbacks make tips. So they can't people just think, oh, they just get an unemployment and it's so easy. That's not, that's not how it works. And that's not how it worked through COVID.
Yeah, no.
So supporting your crew is very essential. And then to go back, and I will say, then I get back to my house and then, I have a mini meltdown because you're like, oh, and it is a very lonely space as an entrepreneur. I mean, you do have a few people you can talk to, but it's you got to act like the strong leader in those situations and then regroup and do things on your end. It might, healthy things. I try to do yoga, do breath work, sleep well, to regroup and get going the next day.
Yeah, it's definitely a very leaders eat last kind of moment, right? Like,
I like that quote. That's a good one,
right? Because you're in it.
Yeah.
It's a different scenario, but I remember during COVID, where that first week, where as a newspaper company that relies a lot on, at least our community papers rely a lot on ads from restaurants and real estate companies. Well, nobody was doing anything, obviously, during COVID. We lost a significant amount of revenue that first few weeks, and our boss, our publisher, is calling each manager individually, and he's, half crying. I mean, it was a very emotional,
right.
You have to do it to say, here's what we're going to do, because we got to get through the next month and then see. But you mentioned, I want to just segue a little bit, a journal. It's one regret I have, because I'm a writer. I feel like I should have done journals or journaling, because I feel like I never did that. I want my son, who's 15, to start doing that. How did you get into has that helped you, and how did you get into that?
So I did have a mentor when I was in college, and before I even went into this area, just said, just keep a journal, keep a journal. I have to admit, it's not a daily thing.
Yeah.
I need to be a little bit better at it, as we all do. But I am glad and do look back, like when I opened my first Coyote. And one thing, as we discussed, I had to take real pictures. So I made scrapbooks, and I'm so fortunate I have those, and wrote down the challenges even then. When I opened Tampa 21 years ago, for instance, it was literally tornadoes, the biggest thunderstorm you've ever seen. We're used to that, but it was a torrential downpour. My power went out. Everything that could possibly go wrong went wrong that evening.
Yeah.
And it was neat to reread that. I remember that actually pretty vividly, because it was my second opening, and it was like, how do you even, you hold it together, but you're losing it behind the scenes. AC units out. It's
Yeah.
90 degrees and people are waiting down the street getting soaked. This is
Yeah.
not ideal. So, yes, so journaling has been a good thing. So when I go back, and my goal is to write a book, and I don't know what avenue that will be, but just to go through all the challenges and help people. I wish I would have had a little more guidance myself. And I've done several jobs and come from a middle-class family, but
Yeah.
I wish that I would have worked in a bar for a solid month before I opened one.
Yeah.
So I like to share my knowledge, and I get mentored still, and I mentee.
Yeah.
So it's good because bar owners will ask me that, and I'm like, you can go to Jack Daniel's and they will sponsor, your bar stools if you feature them as a whiskey. So there's just little things I've learned along the way. Of course, I learned that very early on, but
Yeah.
again, that give them that key information as they're opening that really helps out.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. We're going to get into mentoring in a minute. I want to, before I forget, go back to something, because you talked about, whether it was Panama City or different locations, your team, your staff, your people are so happy when you're a customer at the place, but there's that other side too. How do you keep that culture going, with everybody brings their own problems, their own challenges to work. How do you keep Coyote Ugly as a good place to work? What are some things you do?
For the staff?
Yeah.
Well, we say, look, I think this is the best way to put it. We all have our good and bad days, and all of us. And everyone here is coming to Coyote because they want to forget their problems, be in a great space. So, you got to understand that whatever this person is going through, whether they have cancer, they're going through a divorce, they're going through a breakup, your job is to, really lift them up.
Yeah.
I don't show the news. I only show sporting events. I will not show the news. I will not show have any televisions putting any of the bad things going on in our world. This is an escape for people.
Yeah.
So I
true.
try to remind the girls of that. We are so fortunate, including myself, that as hard as things are, there's always someone who has it worse. And you know what? You're going to feel so much better making their day better, and it's going to make you feel better.
Yeah.
To give them that attention and listen to them. That's more early on in the happy hour stage. They're there to talk and hang out. So do that, and have fun with it. Have fun with them and talk with them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such an important life lesson too, right? You never know what somebody else is going through.
100%.
That's we all need to, even though we know that, we all need to remember that. I think that's an important life lesson.
That's my biggest thing. People are smiling, but we never know what's going on.
Yeah.
And especially now today, for sure.
So I want to switch a little bit to strategy. From what I understand, you've also bought some buildings that. Tell me about that, about your strategy to own, not necessarily lease, and how that's helped you become a better business owner and entrepreneur.
Well, I think what my biggest lesson and failure was, that taught me a big lesson, was when I opened Atlanta, I was only able to lease at that time. So I have this flourishing, get to the building part. I have this flourishing business. And at 5 years, it was a 5-year lease with a 5-year option. And they, I'm a landlord as well. So you're going to do what's best for you. And at that time, it was in Buckhead, Atlanta. And they decided to get rid of all of Buckhead and put a parking deck in a condo where my Coyote Ugly location was. So even though we're paying rent on time and sales are rocking, it was game over. And my heart was broken, not only for me, but for my staff.
Sure.
We had worked so hard for 5 years to build up this great, and we had a lot of regulars in Atlanta. It was just so great. And that was my first Coyote Ugly. So they only tell you 24 hours before that you have to evacuate in 24 hours, and we're going to be changing this. And the devastation of that, I took that as fuel for my fire to say, I will always own my buildings from this point forward. So that is something. I will only purchase my buildings. I want to be my own landlord. I'm fortunate enough to have, at that time, partners who believed in me, who helped me purchase the buildings. And we still own all of them to this very day. And so now they're, my buildings are paid off. They're an asset. I have also bought, I have another business with real estate of rentals and commercial real estate as well. So that is just a very big aspect of it. So that's, to me, the biggest thing is to own your land, no matter if you own a hair salon, a bar, a restaurant, anything, because we've been here 21 years. And this has been our best year ever in Tampa. And as we all know, the development of Ybor and this and that, we're only going to grow and evolve and get better. And the area is improving so much. So it's really great.
Yeah, no, that's a great example of executing on something that you saw as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. Hey, this really impacted us negatively. We're going to make it into something positive later down the road. That's great. So as you've grown the company, obviously you've had other leaders, managers. What do you look for in leadership? What are some things that stand out to you when you're looking for a manager or somebody that, hey, this is somebody who could run things someday?
I always want to look for someone who is eager, positive, who can teach me something. I always like to look for people who I can learn from. I'm always learning every day, and someone who will bring a different aspect to it. Obviously, hardworking, not entitled. I'm just as willing to walk by any table and pick up things and throw out things and get beer for the girls. I want someone who's in the trenches, who will do any job and they're not above any job. And really who goes out as well and understands our competition, understands what's happening. And I don't really call it competition, but just ideas, who travel, who do things. That's what I get inspired a lot when I travel, and go to other bars and restaurants and everything.
Yeah.
So I really look for someone with integrity that I can trust, and who with that example, I am so fortunate that I have had 4 people grow with me. My Todd started as security, and he is now part owner of both Daytona and Destin.
Wow.
So that's a great example of how I grow people with me, and they become owners.
Yeah.
So if they stick with me and they're loyal, they become an owner with me over time. So to start at $8 an hour as security 20 years ago, and now has a home in North Carolina, in Daytona, and owns 2 bars with me, it makes me very proud to see that he has a lifestyle he only dreamed of as well.
Yeah. And it's so good for the business, right? Because it provides that institutional knowledge where something comes up and, we dealt with that once before when the AC broke or when the roof this or, things like that. That's so important in any company.
And that's where his loyalty lies. If I need him if we have a hurricane, if we have a shoot, whatever, he'll be there in 2 seconds. He will be on that road and be there in 2 minutes. So that's, to this day, that loyalty for both of us goes both ways.
You talked about mentorship, mentoring people and then being a mentee yourself. On that side of it, as you've grown into your career, what are some things that stand out that you've learned from your mentors?
That's a good question as well. Some things that stood out from my mentors is everything that they basically told me, other owners of businesses. It is a little lonely at the top.
Yeah.
I have learned that. There's a lot of trade-offs. I didn't really realize what that meant at the time. And I don't want it to be all negative, but it is. Those are very true statements that stick, through that. But I would say the biggest deal, I hope this doesn't sound bad, but do not loan money to friends or family. You will lose them, period. That was a big one.
Yeah.
And it's just true, and don't really involve them in your business. So that's been my biggest lesson, because I've lost not family members, but dear friends through that process, who I'm like, just keep the money. I just want your friendship.
Yeah.
So just be real careful when you're younger, because it's an exciting thing, like it is for an athlete or anyone else. All of a sudden you're 24, you're making some great money if you're fortunate for your business to take off, and, you're buying everyone dinner, and you're, kind of excited, because I grew up the lower middle class kid who had 3 jobs in college and who, had to work so hard. So when you can, give that back, which I want to and do, but you know what I'm saying? That can be a big trade-off.
It's so true. You're telling that story, and this is, I want to say when I was 12. So this is, some 40 years ago, my family bought a car from friends, very good friends of my parents. And the car was basically a lemon. It was a used car, and it ruined the friendship. And I still remember that story 40 something years later. I remember what the car looked like. I remember what these people look like. It's ingrained in my head. It's such a great lesson. And then we just should have bought a car. We were lower middle class as well. And we just should have bought a car from somebody else, not them. Right?
Mark, you're speaking my language. Just 2 weeks ago, my friend wanted to buy my golf cart. I was like, absolutely not. It'll break in a week. Well, that goes back to that. Exactly.
Right.
You're speaking exactly that.
Yeah.
I'm like, absolutely not. I love
Yeah.
you. I would give you the best deal, but no way.
Nope.
No way. We won't, something will happen.
The friendship's
So
more important.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's great. And on the flip side, when young bar owners, or not even bar owners, just entrepreneurs come to you and are sort of looking for your advice, what type of mentorship do you provide to them? What stands out as advice you give to them?
My advice to them is to be ready to never take no for an answer, and you have to be able to get through every obstacle and never quit. And it takes grit, and it takes it's a hustle. I mean, the first 10 years of this it's constant.
Yeah.
So if it goes well, you will be rewarded, 20, 30 years into it, or even sooner. But I do believe in the hard work and a lot of days it's get quick, rich, scam. Those don't seem to work out because you learn so many lessons along the way of how to have longevity. And I was always thinking longevity. So to come up on my 25 year of that and having all my businesses still open and still running after everything, I'm super proud of that. And don't think there aren't days that I was like, I am done. You know what I mean? I am done. I'm done doing this after COVID. I'm like, I'm selling them all, You definitely have those days, but then the next time I'm like, you know what? I employ 200 and something people. This is their livelihood. I love this. These are my babies.
Yeah.
This is it. These are my businesses. This is what I've built.
Yeah.
And again, you just get back in there and conquer. And, a big part of that too, which I want to navigate into is giving back. And that is a really big, big part of what I do. Is the philanthropic side. Yeah. My mom raised me, even though we didn't have a lot, we would walk around doing the March of Dimes. We would always go feed the hungry. We would always do things, and be very involved in that. And I always saw that. So that is something I'm so fortunate now that I have money to tithe back and give to the community in so many different, whether it's feeding Tampa Bay or clothes to kids last week, which was my biggest donation I was able to give. Yeah. I try to beat it every year. And it's just a beautiful cycle that you see, the more you give, the more you make. And that's not why I do it, but it is a beautiful cycle that actually, it does come to fruition when you do it.
Well, it's so important, right? And it pays off in other ways besides the donation, just
absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Is there, you talk about, the challenges, struggles of building the business. Is there a mistake, a failure, a setback that sort of stands out in your mind that you learned the most from?
I would have to go back to the renting.
Yeah.
Renting a building. I don't know if we call it a failure or mistake, but when I look at it, it's like, why didn't I have, because when you are opening, you're like, oh, we last 5 years. Most bars last 3 years.
Yeah.
My nightclub, for instance, I had a nightclub before. A nightclub is the 3 to 5 year, and that's a good run.
Yeah.
That's a really good run, and that's what you expect because nightclubs have to turn over and change and evolve, and some last 20 years. I have very good friends who run Tiger Groove Atlanta. It's 30 years. So there is that 1%. Sure. Again, that's 1%. So, it would be owning your building, owning the land, having control. It's having that control over the direction you can go, with your own building. That was my biggest, I wouldn't say failure. I mean, I would say failure. My failure was thinking, right. 5 years, that's amazing.
Right. Yeah.
At the time, but now as we know, and as we've gotten a little older, we know 5 years goes by like that.
It does.
And here we are at 21 years. And if I hadn't bought that building in Ybor, I would 100% would not be there.
Yeah.
And to go back to that, during COVID or the recent shooting, 27 businesses went out of business permanently just in the Ybor area. So that shows you if I had just opened, and I have so much, so much, feeling towards them, because if I had just opened Coyote, I would not have gotten through that, and I would have not been able to reopen. Yeah. Even possibly owning my building. Yeah. Because that was a significant amount of money that everyone lost during both of those recent incidences.
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, it's just literally it's a cliche, but the spigot was literally turned off, right? There was just nobody coming in. So.
Correct. Yeah. And that's what the social media we have today is so different from what we had 10 or 15 years ago. True. So when you say the biggest challenges are as well as lawsuits, everybody wants something for nothing. We are a brand name now. When I first opened, first 10 years, never had one lawsuit, not one. Now about one comes in every month. Yeah. So you have to, whether it's a slip and fall or something, it's never, it's two guys fight in my bar. I overserve them. It's my fault. Right. We gave them one too many shots. Yeah. It's just so when you become a name brand, you also become a target.
Yes.
So that's where it gets very frustrating.
You have to be, I'm sure, have a good relationship with your insurance people.
Yes, I'll give a shout out to Italiano Insurance.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
They do guide me through mentally, and they do get a lot of money, get a lot of my money, unfortunately, as well.
Yes.
But yes,
yeah,
that's a very good example. And the cost of doing business has gone up 50% as well. When I first opened to insure 4 of my bars, it was 30,000. Now it's 280,000.
Yeah, wild
per year. Just to not to discourage, that's just the cost of doing business now.
Well, going back to Coyote Ugly in general, what else can we, sort of wind down? What else can we expect? I know you got some anniversaries coming up. What's new and exciting happening at the Coyote Ugly locations the rest of 2024?
Well, we are currently looking for new locations in Orlando and Fort Lauderdale to expand. So I have the rights to all of Florida, which has been awesome. I really love Florida because you own your liquor license and you get to own, I look for properties that I own my land. So that's a great thing for bar owning. In other cities, it's a right and a privilege, but here it's a piece of property in Florida. And so we are looking forward to just celebrating all these anniversaries. May 18th is our 21-year anniversary at Coyote Ugly in Ybor, and we'll be just having an open bar and celebrating all our fans and people who have supported us all the years. That's what anniversaries are about, is thanking all the people who have supported us over the years. We have coyotes that come back from day one. We have all the old coyotes, everybody's worked with us. So it's a really cool celebration. And all our regulars who've been there since day one, we have some of those. It's pretty amazing.
Awesome. Well, it's an amazing accomplishment. As you said, 3 to 5 years. The bar restaurant industry is not easy. So 21 years is a major, major accomplishment. Congratulations on that. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Before we totally let you go, we got 3 rapid fire questions for you.
All right. Okay.
What is your go-to song that you will sing in the car, in the shower, wherever? What's the go-to song?
I don't know how this is coming up, but it's One Way or Another as of yesterday. That's just been my one for the last 2 days.
Now that's going to be stuck in my head too now. All right.
Yeah, One Way or Another.
Right.
Because it's on the Coyote Ugly album, and it's something I'm going to get through this because we've had some recent last 2-day things happen.
There you go. Excellent. What is one movie that you will stop whatever you are doing, drop the remote and watch?
That is a good one too. It is Great Expectations.
Oh.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite books from when I was a child, and that's one of them for sure. The Godfather or Great Expectations. Those are my 2.
Awesome. See, I thought you might go.
I actually watched The Godfather last night to relax.
Really?
Yeah, I did.
Awesome. I thought you might go low-hanging fruit and say Coyote Ugly would be the movie. How many times have you seen the movie?
I was just 4.
Okay.
To be honest.
Okay.
And I'm very, very fortunate that, and Reed, for you, it does come on E still a lot. So that's what I love about it. It's very nostalgic. I'm very fortunate because even you always worry, is this brand gonna run its course, or how's this gonna happen? But it's our for the movie, it's our 25-year anniversary for the movie coming up. So a Coyote Ugly 2 is in the works to come out as well. And it is on a lot. So yes, I of course watched it. We all went to the theater. It was such a big deal when it came out. We did not know how big it was going to be. It came from a small article in GQ, and then Jerry Bruckheimer just said, we're doing this movie. And of course, like any 23 or 24-year-old, you're gonna be like, this is amazing, like great, like cool, write a script on our movie, and on our bar.
But actually, when you think about it, this sounds like odd, but now that I'm thinking about the movie, it's even with the storyline, it's kind of wholesome, actually, right? There's like John Goodman's like the sort of lovely father kind of guy. Like it's got like a very family feel to it, actually. Like they would make it different today. Like it would be a totally different movie if they made it today.
You're right. And that's what we're going through with it, because it is just a wholesome movie. And like you said, I'll have the most random people be like, that's my favorite movie. And it's usually like the older guy who I never expect. It's just such a great, wholesome, good movie. And that's what Coyote Ugly is. And I think that's why people love it. It's the girls doing choreographed dances to The Devil Went Down to Georgia. And it's about it's a female owner.
Right.
You know, it's
empowerment.
It's Lil, in the movie, they call Lil my partner. It's Lil, you know, so it's really based on our bar. So right when you walk in, there's a big sign that says the bar came before the movie. Because a lot of people, they always say to me, oh, you saw the movie and then you open the bar. That's so cool. And I was like, no, it was the other way around.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, last rapid fire question. This will be the easiest one, I think. Would you rather sail around the world or drive around North America in a van?
Sail around the world, for sure.
All right.
Yep, I love traveling. Traveling's my biggest luxury I get to do, and I love it.
Awesome. Joanna Olsen, thank you so much for joining us on the From the Corner Office podcast.
Thank you. It's been a blast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Business Observer From the Corner Office podcast. I'm your host, Mark Gordy. This podcast was produced by Reed Corley of the Corley Company in Sarasota. To hear more episodes of From the Corner Office podcast, go to businessobserverfl.com.